ahead. Welcome to this episode of Free to Be TV. Today we're going to talk about a topic that's pretty dear to my heart, coincidences. So for me, I'm always seeing the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm seeing it all the time. But it started for me maybe about 7 years ago. I was at the Salvation Army in their program, and I was working an overnight shift with an older guy named Walter. And I've been telling Walter, Walter, I'm seeing all kinds of coincidences. I'm doing the crossword puzzle, and the clue was Bad Boy Leroy Brown by Frank Sinatra, and then it started playing on the radio. Or I'd be reading a newspaper another day and I'm looking at a honeycomb, and there would be a story on the radio right then and there about some lady who had found 30,000 honeycombs underneath her building. So I'm telling Walter about all this stuff. So one night we're working the overnight shift, and we're at the desk, and Walter's like, man, let's go in the chapel and get on the computer and pull up a song for me. And I was like, okay, Walter, we weren't supposed to do that. Sorry, Major Julie. Sorry, Major John. But I went in and I typed in the song and I pulled up Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And all of a sudden, Walter just started crying. And I'm like, Walter, why are you crying? He says, because I'm sad. I mean, this is just a horrible situation for me. Back in Poland, I was a professor. I was there with my children. And now here I am in America, and I'm homeless, and this is not the life I was looking for. He said, everything changed after the wars. Things just got bad. I said, Walter, I know what you're talking about. I remember those wars, World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War. I told him I even remember the war, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. I remember sitting there at home in the 1980s, and I see President Reagan come on the TV, and he's like, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And so maybe about 4 hours later, Walter went into the kitchen to eat breakfast, and the newspaper came, the Sun-Times newspaper, and I opened it up, and it says, this day in history, President Reagan told Mikhail Gorbachev, tear down this wall. I'm like, oh my God, Walter, it happened again. I can't believe it. And maybe about a year after that, I'm at another place called Affordable Living out south, and I'm telling this guy, his name is Chino, Al Pacino, this exact same story, and he's like, wow, coincidences, things like that. And the next day we didn't have to go to work, so I'm laying in the bed, and I'm just hearing these train whistles just blowing and blowing and blowing, and I'm like, man, maybe this is just a sign for me to get up. I can't sleep. Maybe these train whistles are just blowing to get me out of bed. So I get up out of the bed, I go downstairs, I'm looking for Chino, I can't find him anywhere. And I go to the movie room, and they're playing some bootleg video that you can barely even see. And maybe 5 minutes later, a guy comes in, and he says, I got a new movie for y'all. And he popped in the new movie, and the opening scene was James Bond, was GoldenEye or something like that. And the opening scene was President Reagan telling Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall. It freaked me out. There was no way the day after I'm telling the story about this happening to me before it happens again. So, as time goes on, I happen to be in county jail maybe about a year after that. And I'm telling this story, the exact same story about all these coincidences. And I pick up a book to read it, and we get down to one chapter, and it's talking about President Reagan asking, about the Berlin Wall, asking him to tear down this wall. I said, oh my God, what are the odds of this coincidence happening to me? It really freaked me out. So that was my, Ronald Reagan story. Last week, I was talking to my son-in-law, and I said, we were talking about coincidences and things like that, and I was telling him, about my Ronald Reagan story. And he says, tell me your Ronald Reagan story. And so I told him the Ronald Reagan story. And the very next day, I'm watching an episode of Trevor Noah, and he's talking about how President Biden has asked the gas people to reduce the prices, but he's just asking so weakly. And Trevor was like, if you're a president, you've got to ask something, and you have to mean it in a hard way. You have to be like President Reagan. And he shows us a picture of President Reagan. He's like, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Freaked me the hell out. I was like, how is this possible? It happens once, and it happens again, and then it happened again, then it happened again, and then it just happened again. Well, it just happened again. I simply don't understand it. So that's my coincidence story. Some people would say that these coincidences are just coincidences. I call them synchronicities. Carl Jung, if you look him up, he wrote some books about these coincidences, and these things have been happening to people, and it goes back way back in time. They say, well, what is the reason for these things? Remember, if you've seen these coincidences, the same numbers over and over again, It's nothing to be afraid of, but it's also nothing to ignore. But I truly believe it's just a sign from the universe to let you know that you're on the right path. I'm John Whitehead for Free to Be. Have a good one.